As we pulled up at this serious accident, all I could hear was the mother going, "Baby, baby, baby, baby." But I couldn't find any baby. There was no baby. I just walked into the police station for a nice, quiet midweek afternoon shift, and the radio sprang to life with an urgent job, car into a tree. So quickly grabbed my gear, grabbed the other constable I was working with, and off we set flat out to this car accident that was in a vineyard area of this regional station where I was working at. So we got out there fairly quickly. When we arrived on scene, the driver, he was having a lot of trouble breathing. The ambulance wasn't there at that stage. There was just a couple of bystanders that had called it in, and myself and this other young constable. She was looking after the lady in the back. I had the fellow in the front. By this stage, I'm sort of cradling him in my arms, holding his head back so he had a good airway. He's obviously having a lot of trouble breathing and couldn't breathe. Things were looking pretty bad. His head was not in a good state. And then the paramedics jumped in. They just pulled up. And as soon as they got near him, he passed away in my arms, which is a terrible thing. It's very sobering when things like that happen to you, that's for sure. But in between, the lady in the back, I imagine his wife, kept saying, "Baby, baby, baby," and she couldn't speak English. They were from overseas, obviously tourists, and kept saying, "Baby, baby, baby." Managed to get her out of the vehicle. The local rescue people are fantastic in those regional areas. They call them the VRA, Voluntary Rescue Association, and they do an absolutely fantastic job of helping you out whenever you're in trouble. And they've usually got the best training, the best gear, and they'd come and they'd got this lady out very quickly. But she's still saying baby. She's almost hysterical by this stage. And then I heard something near the car which sounded like a baby crying. And quickly, myself and another rescue squad bloke, we sort of jumped under the car, climbed all over the car, looked around the car, couldn't find a thing. And then we realised that the crying was coming from underneath the front passenger seat. This lady'd been sat in the back, she'd had her seatbelt on, but she'd been holding a baby. And the baby was now wedged underneath the front passenger seat of that vehicle and screaming, which is a great sound. If you're going to be at a job where a baby's involved in an accident and they're injured, if they're screaming, that is a fantastic sound. It's something you want to hear because it means they're still alive. So these guys are really well organised, these volunteer rescue people, VRA, and they've managed to get underneath there and have a look and see what's going on. And the baby is underneath the seat, not really wedged under there, but certainly the seat needed to come out to get to the baby. So they managed to, after a fairly tedious bit of cutting and whatever they did with their tools, they managed to remove the front seat, handed out the car, and there was the baby, and tiny little baby, and had a cut in its head, and you could actually see the dura, which is where the brain sits, and the dura, the skull was gone, and the dura was there, and you could see it sort of throbbing. But it did respond straight away to kindness. A couple of the ladies there gave him a bit of a hug and soothed him down fairly quickly. Obviously had this problem, which is pretty scary, pretty frightening to look at. But a doctor had turned up on scene in between too. And so he was there and he had a look at this little baby and he said, "I don't think there's going to be much problem with this little guy." He said he's missing a bit of his scalp, and if you can find it, it's going to be great help to some people. And no doubt you're going to have to still get the rescue helicopter, which is already on the way, and get him transferred to probably a Sydney hospital. But he said, I don't think there's a lot going to be long-term wrong with this little baby, who apparently was only about 2 months old, I think, from memory. Right, they did airlift him to the hospital in Sydney. and they did manage to put that piece of the skull back in, and they put some sort of fiberglass cap over it, and they were telling me a week later that he was going fantastic. And Mum was happy when she saw the baby, and she'd quietened down, and everything got a little bit sweeter. But still we had the deceased person, which is very sad. I actually did the post-mortem myself from the police side. I attended the post-mortem, which police in those days had to go to all the post-mortems on behalf of the coroner, because everything was dealt with as a suspicious death until it was proved otherwise. And we would take various samples. The doctors would give us various samples that we'd label up in bottles and send away for toxicology testing for alcohol and other drugs. There was none of them involved. I think this fellow had just lost control on the dirt in this rental car and into a tree, which had cost him his life. When they looked inside his head, it was all just disintegrated. So he had massive internal damage inside his brain. So that's why he didn't last 5 seconds. But the baby fully recovered, and Mum fully recovered. And so I suppose that's the positive side of things. The negative side of things is the constable that I was working with that day. That was the last day she ever worked. It was too much for her. By the time we'd done all the work on the scene and they'd taken the body to the morgue, we went to the morgue to book the body in. It's fairly late by then, and she was fairly upset. And I said I'd do it by myself, but she came in and helped me search the body and do what police have to do with property, that type of thing, signed it in. And unfortunately that was the last day she worked. Very good young police officer too. A lot of the female police officers are absolutely fantastic. You know, they'll take punches more than the blokes half the time, and they'll hand them out just as much too. You know, they're knockabout sort of people. Even though this particular girl is extremely attractive young lady, she certainly would get in amongst the action, no problem at all. If there's a brawl, or if you're arresting someone and you're rolling around the ground, and she'd be in there with you, right beside you, no problems at all. So yeah, hats off to all the women in police, and I think they're fantastic. I've worked with some absolutely fantastic female police officers, unbelievably good, fantastic at their job, and truly really nice people there for all the right reasons. So yeah, hats off to all the female police, that's for sure. Well, that's my story for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll catch up later.